I would be the carrier. So then we would kind of both feel like we were involved in the process.
So just so I'm clear, it's someone's sperm, Danielle's egg, and then it would be implanted into you.
So essentially I was like the oven.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So it's like everyone's involved.
Everyone's involved.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And it took our first time. And at 10 weeks, we went for our 10-week checkup. And this would have been when we found out what we were going to have. And we walked in there and they started the ultrasound. And now I have 2 children prior, so I kind of know what I'm looking at on the screen. And I'm looking at the baby and I'm like, there's no movement on the screen.
Oh.
And Danielle's like, so what's this? What's that? Tell me what's this? And the nurse is like, oh, these are the hands and these are the feet and this is the belly and blah, blah, blah. 5 minutes of video footage, literally I have, that I'm like, well, I don't see any movement. Like, are you sure that this is okay? And she was like looking and she was like, I don't see a heartbeat. And like, we both just dropped and like looked at each other. And it's like, nobody wants to hear those words when you're pregnant and you're going in for an ultrasound at 10 weeks. And so what I had was considered a missed miscarriage. So it's when the child just dies inside of you, but there's no external signs of a miscarriage. I had no idea. And I didn't even know what this was. And literally she's like, I guess we'll have to schedule you for a D&C. I didn't even know what a D&C was. Like, these are things that they never talk to you, about. And so I chose to see if my body would naturally expel of the fetus. And I waited 2 weeks. And at that point, it still hadn't come out. And then there could be deterioration, which could then lead to infections. And so I ended up going to get scheduled for a D&C, but I caught COVID at the time. And yeah, it was 2021. 2021. And so they gave me abortion pills to take at home while I had COVID, because I guess when you go under, you can't get, what is it called?
Intubated.
Intubated. And so I ended up having COVID, took the abortion pills, and I bled out so much and I was so weak between the virus and this that I passed out on the toilet with my son standing there. Danielle had just ran to go get me something to eat and I hit my head. It's going to sound bougie as fuck, but I hit my head on the bidet next to me and it split my head. And so here I am now bleeding. My son's there, doesn't know if I'm bleeding from my head or what is actually happening. And
it's so traumatic, not only for you, but for your son and for you.
Yeah, everyone. It was not a good time at all. And so we had to call the ambulance. I spent 3 days in the hospital. They had to give me an epidural because, again, I had COVID. So they gave me an epidural to perform an emergency D&C. It was just a nightmare. It was not fun at all.
One of the most that was a terribly fucked up story, but like fucked up things about this whole COVID thing is like the way they handled all of these situations is such a mess.
Horrible. I lost my uncle during COVID and my aunt was not able to see him in the hospital for his last hours. It was just, that time I think for everyone was just like.
They're going to look back on that time in the future and be like, this was one of the dumbest times in human history.
Dumbest. I mean, can we talk about the mask? Whenever I see photos now, I'm just like, what were we thinking with the gloves and the Lysol on the bags? But we don't have to get into that.
Oh, trust me. We've got into it on this enough where they're probably like, move the fuck on.
The way that I wore the mask was like,
listen,
like
I will never
hanging off like a limp dick. I'm not wearing a mask.
I will
I'm masked
never,
out.
ever forget or forgive these nutcases during that time. I'll be bringing it up till I'm 100 years old.
What about when they would drive in the car with the mask on and you're like, you're literally in the car alone. I can't. I'm also not going to breathe fiberglass from the mask into my lungs. Like, I'm sorry. No thanks.
Right.
Anyway.
Nothing worse than people that wanted medals for being cowards.
Next time you come on the podcast, we can discuss that. So going through all of this, there are a lot of people listening who are going through fertility treatments or have had miscarriages. I guess, I don't know if there's advice, but what did you sort of learn throughout this entire process?
What I learned was that I think the statistics are like 1 in 4 women have a missed miscarriage or miscarriage, and that is really high. And I don't think that a lot of women talk about it, whether it's because they're embarrassed and feel like they've done something wrong to not be able to carry or to have lost this child. I just think talking about the experience more and sharing that is definitely helpful for everyone that's going through IVF and fertility, period. That's kind of helped us, is just sharing our story. We created a YouTube and we kind of told everyone and showed the whole thing. So
was IVF difficult?
So I think it's emotionally takes like an emotional toll, especially for like Danielle in the first part. I did a whole different thing, which was just preparing my body to carry, which is more like progesterone and some other shots. And the needles are like this big.
I heard.
Have to go in your butt.
It's like a baseball bat.
It's huge. It wasn't so bad, especially if you use an ice pack and numb the area. But for her, you have to go on birth control first to get yourself on like the specific cycle. Then you have to do these hormones and injections every day. It's a lot. I give a lot of women so much credit that are going through this multiple times. There's women that are like, oh, 5th time IVF, 8th time IVF. I'm like, how? I couldn't
we
do
have
it.
a friend that did it.
Molly.
No, not just Molly. Christine Chu came on. She was in Bling Empire, the show Bling Empire, and she did it 13 times.
Can't.
Yeah.
So much credit.
13
it's
times.
so wearing.
But
and
she
taxing.
got her miracle baby.
Well, then it's worth it.
Yeah. So I would love to talk about what you're working on now, because what you're doing is absolutely amazing for so many women. So talk to us about where this idea transpired, what it is, all the things.
So I just launched